Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Fronteras, A Change in America. I'm Monica Ortiz Uribe. On today's show, we talk about bicycles. Cyclists in this border region are becoming more proactive about having their space on the roads. To talk about efforts to make this region more bike-friendly, I've invited two guests. George Pearson, he's a local bike educator here in Las Cruces, and Bennet Foster, he's president of Velo Paso in El Paso. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, Monica. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to have you on the show. So tell me a little bit more about your organizations and what you each do in your respective cities. You can start with Ben.
Okay. Velo Paso started after May. That's National Bike Month. We had over 1,000 riders come out, had over 23 rides, and we had the first binational community bike ride between Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, which attracted 100 people and a lot of media attention. After that, people felt like there was a need in the community for an organization like Velo Paso, which is a bicycle pedestrian coalition. It's not unusual to have it in a large city. And what we do is we just want to make the roads safe and accessible for pedestrians and cyclists.
So it's like a bicycle advocacy group that advocates for cyclists in El Paso.
Correct. It's actually the Paso del Norte region. So it's cyclists in Ciudad Juarez, El Paso, Horizon, Socorro, even we want to help out our friends in Mesilla Valley as well.
Okay, very good. And there wasn't anything like it before?
We had a lot of bicycle clubs, and they were very effective at doing their group rides and recreational riding in the area. And we have actually partnered up with them. But in terms of actually organized advocacy, education, and outreach, we haven't seen it before in El Paso.
Okay, great. And George, tell us about what's going on in Las Cruces, what you do here in Las Cruces.
Well, I'm certified with the League of American Cyclists as an instructor in LCI, League Cycling Instructor. So as part of that, I help with the different classes that we put together. The fourth Saturday of the past few months, we've been doing a 2-hour class at Peace Lutheran Church, Bicycle Basics 1, 2, 3, where you can get 2 hours of basic bike mechanics, lubing your chain, fixing your flat, and then 2 hours of just some basic on-road skills, scanning and turning and making sure that you can deal with traffic pretty easily. We also have some other classes in our curriculum, Traffic Skills 101 that we offer that actually will take you out on the road and evaluate, make sure that you are riding safely in traffic, because you are in fact traffic when you're a bicyclist.
So tell me why bicycles? I mean, why are they important, and why do you two dedicate so much of your time to talking about them and advocating for them?
Well, on my part, it's just something that I've been interested in a long time, and I've used cycling as my mode of transportation for the most part. I leave the truck at home. I live in downtown Las Cruces, and my offices are near to campus. For about 10 years, they were actually on campus, and so it's about a 6-mile round trip. And as part of that, I'd leave the truck at home, and especially when gas prices are approaching $4 a gallon, it's like $4 just to ride back and forth every day. So it also, the most wear and tear on your vehicle is that first 2 miles, and that's the distance of the most typical bicycle ride. So that's another motivation.
What about for you, Ben? Why bikes?
I actually share George's comments. Yeah, bikes are just a clean, cheap, easy way to get around your city. I use my bicycle not to go on 50-mile rides or 10-mile rides. I just go from point A to point B. Any ride that's under 5 miles, I just take my bike. It's very simple. And it's just a fun way to get around your city and to really get to know your city. Every day I get to ride my bike, and I rarely have, there's rarely a day that goes by where I don't get to say hi to one of my neighbors as I'm riding past. And I've even encouraged quite a few of my neighbors to get a bicycle. And what's really great about just something as simple as a bicycle is that we're seeing stores popping up that cater to bicycles in El Paso, as well as a local bike shop. Like there's this one, Chuck's Bicycle Shop, just opened up down the street from my house, and he's been fantastic. His business is doing really well, and we have coffee shops that are opening up catering to cyclists, and it's just a culture of cycling that's a healthy, clean, cheap, and easy way to get around your city.
George, how did you first start riding bicycles?
Well, first started back when I was a kid. Got my first bicycle, of course, and then I always enjoyed that, and so I would use that to ride to work occasionally. And then at some point, it just worked out that when I had my wife, she'd have the car at home, and I could ride to work, and we only needed one vehicle. So that was a tremendous savings for us, just monetarily, and that's kind of where that evolved from. And then I was a little bit interested in local politics, and as part of that, after Reuben Smith was mayor, they started the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, had a bicycle facilities advisory committee that they created. And so I was on the very initial BFAC, we called it at that time. And that was before we really had any facilities going on in Las Cruces. There were like 3 designated bike lanes that didn't connect to any place.
Like in the whole city you're talking about?
The whole city.
3?
Something like that. It was like what you were supposed to do, get a helicopter to go to the starting point and ride to the end and get a helicopter to leave, because there was no connectivity or anything. So as part of that initial effort, we mapped out where routes should be, and then the years after that, we started getting help with the city implementing some of those things. So now we have a fairly decent system in town that lets you get from point A to point B.
Yeah, so how long ago was that this started off at the MPO level?
I'm trying to remember, it's probably late 80s, 88 or so, when that first started. And then I left it for a while and came back about 3 years ago. Yeah. And so to pay me back, they made me chair of the committee right away.
And so is that what you're doing now, full time, or is?
No, I've got other work that my boss keeps me busy at. Yeah. So this is all volunteer effort. So the MPO committee meets about every other month, starting about 5 o'clock for a 2-hour meeting. And we try to do some different recommendations to the policy committee. The MPO consists of the policy committee, which is in Las Cruces. It's actually the Mesilla Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization. We've got 10 members at the policy committee level. There are 3 from each of the member entities. There's Town of Mesilla, City of Las Cruces, and Doña Ana County. And plus we have the engineer from New Mexico Department of Transportation, District 1. And they set the overriding goals, and part of their job is to help allocate where federal funding that we get from the state of New Mexico, how those projects get allocated.
Okay. So, so Ben, tell us, you moved from California to El Paso. Is that correct? Tell us what your impressions were when you first moved here, being cycling so much, right? What were your first impressions when you came to El Paso?
El Paso had a lot of big, wide roads. Definitely a lot of amenities that were spread out across vast distances. So it wasn't necessarily an ideal area to ride your bicycle in, but my wife and I sure found a way to make it work. She bikes to work. We have one car, and I know a lot of people are thinking like, "Whoa, look at these hippies from California," right? Well, actually, what's happened in California, and specifically Los Angeles, where I came from, is that they had a period of about 15 to 20 years where they decided we're going to reverse the car culture that had been essentially been perpetuated and reinforced over years and years of planning around sprawl. And they were able to do that through things like initiatives like the metro system, which is underground and above ground light rail system. And they doubled down on their bike lanes and bike infrastructure. And you have the Car City, which I guess is Detroit, but LA as well. Car City USA has taken active steps to reverse course, and they did it successfully. We lived there for about 2 years, and we had a wonderful time, and we were able to get to where we needed to go. El Paso is moving in that same direction now. because I think elected officials, especially the community, are realizing what a benefit it is to live in a place called the Sun City, because it's beautiful out there, and we could ride virtually year-round. So
George, I understand Las Cruces is maybe a few steps ahead from El Paso. What have you all been able to accomplish for the bicycling community?
Well, one of the things that the League of American Bicyclists has a Bicycle Friendly America program, and part of that they have bicycle friendly communities. And over the years we've applied at different times. The first time application, the city got an honorable mention. The next time they didn't get a mention at all, but then the last application cycle we became a bronze level bicycle friendly community. So
what sort of changes have you noticed as a cyclist that's regularly on the roads from when you first started to today?
Having lanes put in, if you know Solano, they did what they call a road diet. They turned that from a 4-lane congested roadway to a 3-lane roadway with bike lanes. So instead of having, and actually that makes it much safer for the vehicles too, because there were a lot of turning accidents involving vehicles, because people would wait or they'd come out into the intersection, try to make that turn while oncoming traffic. Now there's a place for them to sit to make their left-hand turns, and then cars behind can continue, and they're not going to rear-end these cars. So a lot of the types of things, when we talk about facilities, a lot of the things that are done for bicyclists are actually more advantageous to vehicle drivers. It's a wider shoulder, makes it safer. If you got a breakdown, you've got a place that you can move over and get out of the roadway. Things like that. One of the planners at the MPO did a list of like 12 items that when you do what we call complete street, where you take into consideration bicycles, vehicles, and pedestrians, of those 12 items, about 8 of them were specifically more beneficial to vehicles.
Okay, okay. Well, and Ben, tell us, the city of El Paso has some plans for a bike share program, as I understand. Can you tell us about it? What's it going to look like, and how's it going to work?
Wow, the city of El Paso has a lot of plans specifically geared towards becoming a more active, mobile city. One of these plans involves a bike share program. In addition to a bike share program, we also have a bicycle program within the city, which means that there's going to be staff dedicated to bicycle initiatives within the city. And this is a big accomplishment for El Paso.
Because you're saying it didn't exist before.
It did not exist before.
I see. So you'll have cyclists working alongside the city to make plans for future?
Oh, even there are actually staff working on plans about how we navigate our streets, how we get around, how streets are going to be laid out and reconstructed when they're being repaved to put bicycle amenities on there. But one of the big things coming out of this year is the bike share program. What the bike share program is essentially you have a docking station. You have a docking station situated around the city, and there's about 10 bikes on each docking station. You can check them out, take them to a different docking station, ride about 2 miles or less, and you basically rent these bikes out. What that does is it encourages a culture of cycling. It reduces the tendency to want to hop in your car and drive to the drugstore. You just hop on a bike share bike and you go there. It's really affordable, and it's a cheap, clean, easy way to get around. We currently have this amazing opportunity in El Paso to have a $2 million bike share program. What $2 million gets you is a world-class program. This is comparable to what Austin is going to unroll at the end of this year.
This is Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas we are going to have a bike share program comparable to Austin, Texas. Now, as El Pasoans, we should be proud of this because this is the future of transportation. All cities are moving towards bike share programs to supplement their current public transportation system. So in El Paso, we have Sun Metro. What this does is this is going to increase our transit shed. That's the distance between getting from the bus stop to your destination and back. And right now, these bike share programs, they complete the first and last mile of every trip on public transportation. And that's something that El Paso, because we are investing a lot of money in our rapid transit system through the Sun Metro, And the rapid transit system, are you familiar with that, Monica?
No, tell us.
Oh, okay.
Give us a nutshell of the.
Okay, so the rapid transit system, they're called the Brio buses, and they're articulated buses with bicycle parking inside the bus, and they have time signals, so they fly right through intersections without having to wait for a light to change, and it'll get you where you need to go faster, more efficiently, and comfortably. And so if you say your car breaks down, or say you just don't want to drive it that day, say you're sick of congestion on the 10, hop on one of these Brio buses, and you're going to fly down to your work or your destination.
How far away is El Paso from getting these?
The Mesa corridor is coming online, I believe May of next year, and then we're going to have Mesa, Dyer, Montana, and Alameda are going to be outfitted with these corridors. Okay. And it's something that I know the city's been working on for the last, I believe, 10 years. And this bike share program is going to work hand in hand with that multimodal system.
When does the bike share get started?
Bike share program we could have it as soon as before the end of next year.
By the end of next year.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I mean that sounds like a lot of things that's happening in both cities. But I mean, I wonder when it comes down to it, if I do want to go for a trip to the drugstore, right, a couple miles down. I mean, I know what's gonna motivate me to take my bike versus get in my car and get there probably faster, right?
Faster on the bicycle.
Well, tell me about that. If I'm having this debate with myself, should I take the car or should I take the bike? How are you guys going to convince me to take the bike?
You do this one. Yeah.
Consider you get out of your front door to get on your bike and you ride near to the front door of your destination. You can park. That's something that might need to be worked on in certain places, is to have sufficient bicycle parking. But if you did the same thing in your car, you get in your car, you wait 30 seconds to warm up the car a little bit. You have to go into the driveway, wait for traffic, go find a parking spot. And for a 2 mile or less trip, which something like 80% of the trips are done, I mean, a huge number, maybe it's 50%, but it's a huge number of trips are 2 miles or less. You're taking longer to get there. And you save so much in the worst time to run your vehicle is that first 2 or 3 minutes when you're throwing out all the internal combustion stuff that doesn't really work yet because your engine's not warm. So all the carbon dioxide and hydrocarbons are going into the environment, and there's zero hydrocarbons when you're dealing with your bicycle. And that's why El Paso was using what's called CMAQ funds, congestion mitigation funds. It's air pollution funds. And that's where they were supposed to get that money that TxDOT decided that they weren't going to use for that.
Congestion, tell me what these funds are again?
Large cities have areas of the country that have pollution problems are qualify for CMAQ funds, congestion mitigation, air quality. Yeah.
Congestion mitigation, air quality
in New Mexico,
funds.
it's only Albuquerque has qualified for those kinds of funds.
So this is federal money that's set apart for cities that have air pollution issues.
Right.
And El Paso is one of these cities. Albuquerque is another.
Right.
Okay.
Houston also receives CMAQ funds. I think they receive 10 times the amount that El Paso receives.
Okay.
And I guess now that you brought up CMAQ funds, this kind of segues nicely into the bike share program. Mm-hmm. So for the last 3 months, there's been a bit of a conflict and confusion about how CMAQ funds are being used for the bike share program.
Okay.
On one hand, I mean, this all comes down to vision, really. Vision of what you want the Paso del Norte region to look like. Do you want to have long stretches where we have nothing but roads and no facilities for pedestrians or bicyclists? Or do we want to create an alternative transportation options and active transportation options for our residents and constituents?
If I can comment about those long stretches of roadways where people just drive past, that means nobody's stopping to buy anything. They've shown in New York City, where they added the dedicated bike lanes, sales tax revenue has increased 50% in those corridors. So bicycles mean business. It's not just traffic mitigation. It's not just, oh, you look cute on a bicycle, oh, what's fun. No, it means business. It means money for local businesses. And that's another reason why having bicycles is an important option.
Okay, so these were all factors that were taken into consideration that you propose before a city when it considers whether or not it wants to make more of a space for bicycles on its roads.
Oh, that should be a primary consideration, especially if we're going to do a lot of economic development in a downtown area or anywhere in a city. That should be fundamental principle of development, is how are we going to make these amenities attractive to cyclists and pedestrians.
Okay. Well, I wonder then if you all might give some highlights for people that aren't very familiar with bicycles, that are riding their cars around town and trying to figure out how to ride alongside bicycles. What are maybe some of the more common misnomers for motorists about cyclists on the road? What are the more common things you see or misunderstandings?
Well, I think the bicyclists get painted with one brush, is that they never obey any laws and they just run stop signs and ride the wrong way. Now, there's a certain amount of people that do that, but if you look at the number of drivers on the road, if you were to paint with the same generalization, every last driver is a speeder, nobody stops for stop signs, there's accidents all over the place, it's horrible, why would you ever want to get in your car? So it's a matter of becoming comfortable and knowledgeable, and that's where the education part comes in, where if you're a bicyclist, you need to be educated on what part of the roadway is your part. You need to obey the traffic rules, just cars need to obey the traffic rules and cyclists need to obey traffic rules. Cyclists need to be predictable. That's probably the scariest thing for a vehicle. Vehicles don't want to crash into bicyclists as much as the bicyclists don't want to be crashed into. And so if the cyclist rides predictably, the vehicle driver will know what to expect and they can each share that space.
Okay. Yeah, do you have anything to add? Like what's some advice for motorists to watch out for? And
Well, first off, bicycles are a vehicle. And if people don't like that, they need to take that up with the Texas Transportation Code, because that's what says that bicycles are a vehicle. We're bounded by the same rights and laws as motor vehicles. We have to ride to as far right of the lane as practicable, not as practical, not as anything else.
Possible.
Not as possible. It's practicable. So when you're putting two vehicles on a narrow road, 10 feet wide road, that bicycle has a right to take that lane until they feel.
Even if there's a bike lane there, if that lane's obstructed, the bicyclist has the ability and the need to enter into the traffic lane. Of course, the bicyclist needs to coordinate and negotiate with that traffic to make sure that there's room for him, right. But he has the right to be there.
And also in the Texas Transportation Code, it says, it shows you the various hand signals that you can use, just like we had back in the 40s and 40s and 50s, where a lot of our vehicles didn't have indicators. So you may remember, people were putting their hands out on the road. That's the turn right. They're going to take a left. They're going to stop. Like we've adopted that for bicycles as well. And that's a way that we as people on bikes on the road, sharing the road with motorists, can indicate, can negotiate, and signal. Because just like, bicyclists are drivers too. How do you think we got here? Well, you rode your bike. But when we drive, right, we're just as mad as everyone else when someone doesn't signal when they go in front of you. And I know in El Paso, a lot of us, we have the El Paso turn, right? We actually, we turn, we stop, and then we signal as we're making the turn. So there's actually no indication that we're actually turning. We want the same rules to apply to the bicyclists as well. And so to go back to your original question about what motorists should just expect to see bicycles as traffic, right? And that they should just respect that two of these vehicles are going to be sharing the road. And as bicyclists, we're trying to impart a sense of responsibility on the road. So not just blowing through stop signs, blowing through lights, but actually stopping. And if there's a right of way or if there's a right turn lane, a bicycle can move over and make room for that motorist who wants to make a right. And so those are the habits, behaviors that we want to impart on the bicycle community. That we're both sharing the road.
So can you two give us some more information in terms of if someone in Las Cruces or El Paso wants to familiarize themselves more with the road rules, if they're going to be riding their bikes, or if they want to take a ride up, or they want to learn how to mountain bike or take a nice cruise over the weekend, where can they turn?
And Las Cruces is a good resource. A good place to go would be Outdoor Adventures. They're one of the local bike shops, and people there are very knowledgeable, and they can point in the direction of their particular. If they want to do mountain biking, they're going to know the mountain bike people. If they want to do commuting, they know people that do the commuting. As far as commuting, our education group, we do what we call a visibility ride the second Monday of each month, where we ride from the train station, the train depot downtown Las Cruces, and we take a ride up to Solano and across, and then down to the Starbucks at University in Espina. And we do that as a way to try to promote that, yes, we are traffic and we're doing this respectfully and safely, and that's the way everybody should be doing it.
Very good. What about in El Paso, Ben?
Some resources. Well, we're talking about different types now we're talking about different types of bicycling. We have groups that go and do the recreational riding, and usually you want to join, you want to jump in with a club. And so in El Paso, we have two very big clubs. One's the El Paso Bike Club, which is normally on the west side, and they do a lot of bike rides between Mesilla and El Paso. On the east side of El Paso, we have EP Cyclists, and they have beginner, intermediate, and advanced recreational cycling. Now these are the road bikes. This is where you're riding for sport, where you're riding for fun, and you're riding for health. For mountain biking, three great resources are actually Crazy Cat Cyclery. You can go to, they have 3 shops. You can Google them. You also have the Bicycle Company. And then you also have I believe it's Borderlands Mountain Biking Association, BIMBA, B-M-B-A. And you can Google them as well. And they have a lot of great resources. You can meet people there, and you can go mountain biking.
Very good. Well, I'd like to thank you two for coming and talking about the exciting news on the bicycle front in our border region. So this has been Fronteras, a Changing America desk. My name is Monica Ortiz. Have a good evening.